So here is the output of our image generation blob generator application actually. So in that you can see that in that left side there is a boxes there. So in that you can customize all the things, right? So you can increase the columns and increase the row, and you can control the spread, and you can control the borders, and you can control the link probability, and you can control the slant influence, and you can control the grid scale, all those things actually. And even there is a in logic, so the preset configuration, so you can generate the new pattern each times over there actually. And you can hide the menu, and you can generate whatever how much you need. And also you can take a screenshot of this image. You can get this image actually. So once you click that screenshot, it will asking to store, and once I store that, as you can see that, so the image also will be there actually. So let's see how to create this kind of simple application in React. So don't skip the video. And if you are new to this channel, please subscribe my channel. Let's all right. So in this video today we are talk about that how to generate the blob generator kind of animation React simple application, right? So in that I'm going to use that replit.com. So in this website it will give that end-to-end platform for our development purpose actually. So it's completely free for developers for the basic version. So I can personally prefer that actually. So in that as you can see that bounties and the features, all those things you can see, and you can just play around that. And so in that I'm going to you can create with your Google account, so best actually. So the next part I'm going to create a React application environment over there. So let's start. So I can choose create ripple. So in that I can choose the create ripple. So defaultly it will give the Python environment. So I can change as a React. So in that React, so there is a multiple Reacts, is the React JavaScript, React TypeScript, and a React extension. So I can choose React JavaScript, and so I can choose a name generator like that. So once I choose that, I can choose create ripple. So that initially it will take some time. So after that you can see that complete React environment over there. So in that you can see that packages files, and there is a basic file structures, and you can see the CPU and the RAM storage, all those things actually. So it is quite normal thing actually. So you can just you can develop, and you can create some simple basic application using this site. So let's get started. So here is the sample file structure of reactjs. So in that I can open that JSX. So let me open it. So first thing we need to import that some kind of necessary import statement, so called as dependencies actually. So in that let me type it. Yeah. So here is the basic dependencies. So in that that first line, that import react, so it will be entire React library, like hooks and components. So all the features comes to in the code. And app.css, it will be comes the designing, all the styles will be include in that React application actually. So after that as you can see in that output, so we will have two major option. One is cell, another one is connector. So each thing I'll handle in the different file things. So still file is not created, so I can just dumbly I just imported that. And after that so there is a save images, and dom to image, that means the screenshot, and saving things, and mobile supports, and the throttle dot that load dash dot throttle. So this function is a load dash library. So it will be limit that rates, which we called that optimizing the performance of specific task actually. So that's why we imported this kind of import statements. The next part, I'm going to create a file called cell.jsx actually. So the cell file will contains that creating that each dots actually, so that it will be handled that file. So here is there is a new file icon is there. So if I click that, in that I can type cell.jsx. So once I created that, so I need to type the code. So let me type the code. Yeah, so here is the code. So let me explain. So in that code, the first line, obviously it's a React library import module. So and constant dot cell props. So under that all the codes, this defines the functional component called cell. So functional components are way of defining that React components using the JavaScript function. So they take the props as an argument, and it will be data passed through that parent component. So that's why. And there is that next part. It's a normed size. So the normed size equal to prop size into 0.32. So this line calculates that normalize the size of cells based on the size actually. And that size props passed to that cell component, that size of props, and represent the desired size of cell, and the normed size will be a 32 percentage of value. So this value used to determine the dimension of position of the react elements inside the svg. And the return statements, obviously JSX code represented the visual output to the cell component actually. And a svg tag, so the svg width height class name we mentioned, right? So each will be a 32 pixel representing that canva, which is a svg component will be drawn. So this class name attribute set the class name, so that so called as svg element. And the direct component we inside the svg we use that, right? So these attributes define that xy coordinates, and top left corner of rectangle. So this cell is centered within that svg canvas, so that x and y coordinates calculated basis on the normal size. And obviously inside that width height fill and rx we used that, right? So these attributes at the border radius and height width filling the colors and determine the border radius. So all those things will keep it that actually. And finally we closing that svg tag. And so in summary it will be customizing, it will be creating that some svg cell and customizing that size, color, border, radius. So all those things we will be customizing from the props actually. And so this is why that cell.jsx will works based on that. Let's go to the next part. The next part, I'm going to create a connector file. So that connector file will perform that connecting that each cell between some with animation, right? So that canva also we need to create, so that all the functionality will managed by the connector.jsx file actually. So in that I will create a one file called connector.jsx. So once I created that, so here is the file. So once I created that, and let me type the code, and in finally I will explain the code as well. So yeah, here is the code. So in that part, so as you can see that the first line we can import that uh, React library like webhooks, all those things actually. That next thing we will use that const with the connector, right? So they define that functional components called connector. So it takes the props as an argument, which is represented the properties based on this component from this parent actually. And the next part we use that show, right? That constant show. And yeah, so this constant show used for react hook to calculate the boolean value. So that's why. So the once which is determined to connector is showed visible or not, that we need to know. And it randomly generate the value between 0 and 1. If it is less than, props connection probability divided by 100 actually. And the next part, props dot connection probability, and props dot update is there, right? So which is dependency ensure that value calculated actually whenever props connection property or props update changes actually. And so let me go to that next, that rotation. So const rotation equal to react dot use memo, use memo, and math dot random slat influence. It's a 90 0 to 90. And we will call that slant influence and update as well. So this line used for rotation the angle, and for the connector. So it randomly generates the value between 0 and 1. If it is greater, props are slant, the rotation angle set to be a 0 degrees. Otherwise, it's set to be 90 degrees. So that's why this is the logic actually. And that slant influence is the value between that 0 and 1 determines the influence slanting to the connector. So the props update dependencies the ensure that value is recalculated whenever props slant influence or that update changes, right? So the next part we will go to the condition thing, and in this condition, the connector is not shown, and the component return the empty SVG element with that 32 pixels actually. And yeah, if it is shown, the code block is executed if it show is true, meaning connector should be a visible. Pretty awesome, right? That logic. So, and that next part, constel and a const gap size and a rect size, these are the things we will define as some default values. And that next part we will go with the written statement actually. So in that return statement, first line we will use that rectangle with 100 percentage height, 100% props with the fill color, right? So this element background of connector, it covers that entire SVG canvas 32 by 32 pixels is filled with the color of specified in the props dot color, right? So that same as that second rectangle. So that actually the second rectangle, actually they both will be have the same property but at different positions. So one is centered, another one is offset from the center. So they represented that rounded of the rectangle surrounded with the connector cell. So that's why, and in that part you can see that width is equal to rect size, and height is equal to rect size, and rx property, and that end to end actually rx attributes will be that called as so called as radius actually. And stroke we used. So these attributes set the color and the width of stroke and the outline of the color of rectangle. So these are the things. And fill equal to none, and there is a coordinates, x is equal to 16, y is equal to 16. So these are the rectangles, offset from the center, from the center to the creating surrounding the gap actually. And finally we will close that svg, and we will just simply export the connector to the other parts of the application. So that's all about in the connector.js. So the next part we will implement that cell.jsx, and the connector.js we can include in that app.jsx. So finally we will get that core logic actually. Yeah, so I'm come to the app.jsx, and I'm going to start that to return the core logic actually. So with the connecting that cell.jsx and the connector.jsx along with that app.jsx, so I'm going to create that whole logic actually. So don't skip that. And so let me type the code for the initial thing. And yeah, here is the thing. So in that there is a function app, so they define that app component as a functional component, as you know. And the second thing, columns, const columns and the set columns react use state. These lines declare that state variable called column in that initial value of 5. It also declares a function set column to be a value of column actually, column. Yeah, the use state hook is used to create and managing that states actually. We have multiple states, so in that column will be start from the 5 value actually. So same as rows and the set rows, size and the set size, and the border radius and set border radius. So that initial value it going to set, and initial color going to set, and the background color probability and the grid scale, and update and set update, all those things will be set with some default values actually. So that next we are going to use effect I can wrote actually. So let me type. So here is the code, react dot use effect actually. So in that react dot use effect, this line initialize the use effect hook. So this use effect hooks take a two arguments, a function and a dependencies array. In this case, the dependency array is a empty array, which means effect only will be executed once, immediately after component is to be mounted. And that function inside use hook it's executed when the component it's mounts actually. So in that we made a one condition if location dot hash, right? So this condition check that is there is any hash portion in that URL, example param1, param2, param3, like that. So the uh, hash part of the URL usually store the additional information that doesn't affect any page of navigation. It just had the some information parameters. So once the parameter is found, so we need to slice the parameters, so and leading with the hashing value. So in that I will slicing that value. Set column should be a param 0, set rows should be a param 1, and the set size should be a 2, 3, 4, and until 6 each of the value it's represent that one value actually. So in that finally this effect of this code when the component is mounts and there is a hash in the URL, that state variable component will be updated based on that value provided by the hash. So this allow components initialize the state based on the URL and make it a possible URL to represent that different configuration of the states map, right? So let's go to the next part. The next part, I'm going to return one function that called the generate hash data. So this generate hash data will it used for to join method of array. So the array is a prototype, right? So the prototype to concatenate of the elements of the params array into the single string with a separator as a hyphen actually. So the join methods creates a new string by concatenating all the elements of an array and return the string. In case it return the hash data of the string. So that's why. And let me wrote that next function. The next part I'm going to create the function of saving the image and generating the blob, right. So in that I'm going to type, yeah. So here's the thing. So async function download image. So in that set button is loading true, I just set it. And in that part I can call the generate blob function. So along with I can store the image as a blob.png. So in that that there is a await and a general blob will be used, right? So this line uses that await keyword and pass the function execution until promise is written by the general blob. So function is resolved, generate blob will be returned that blob represent that image actually. And the next part is save us. So save us this line call us to saving that image using the file saver library, obviously. And we used that set button loading false, right? So in that this line set the button. This is likely used to indicate that that is download process is finished and the loading state can be removed from the UI. Typically used when the download is completed. That's all actually. So under that generate blob, there is a function. So this define the function general blob. So this function responsible to generating the blob from the image data of the content in the DOM. So that's all. And inside that we just use that some return and resolve things. So this lines creates a returns as a new promise. Yeah, promise represent that asynchronous operation that may complete in the future, either is successfully or with an error. So resolve, it's likely that same. And so inside the promise executor function we used, so we call to dom to image to blob actually. So which is likely imported from that dom to image library. That function takes the HTML element, like in this case that element with that id main content. So this converts the content as a image blob, and it will we can store as a image. So that's all. And we can go to the next part. I'm gonna type that next part same as use effect. So in that I'm going to generating the hash data with this value. So column, rows, size, border size, background color. So these are the things we have here default values. So and we are going to generate that hashing data for those things actually. And the next part I'm going to look into that UI thing actually. So first I am going to return that css. So here is a css file const control style. So in that I'm going to position, it should be a fix, and a top right background and a backdrop filter border. So what are the things we need, so that I can add it in the style sheet. And the next part, we are going to import that more styles, and that html elements, all those things we need to add. So let's type the code. Let me go with input grid style and button style, these things. So let me type the code. And so function, yeah. So the const input grid style and show button style and gen button style and a hidden wrapper style. So each of the things I'm going to return that css and position on that actually. So the next part I'm going to start that html thing. So first let me check with the default values, that things. So it is the code. And so the slant influence, so the default values I'm set it from that slant influence value. And a handle column will be setting that column value, and the rows will be handled by the rows value. And the handle size, I'm going to create a function. And the handle border size, it should be setting that border radius. And the handle color, background color, and the connection probability, slant influence, and the grid scale. So all the things I added in that, just calling the dom thing and setting the property actually. So that's thing. And the next part, yeah. So let me type the code. And let's see. So here is the code. And so I just skipped the code typing part because the reason is the video length I need to should consider on that, so that's why. And so let me explain. So in that the cons is button loading and the set button loading is there, right? So in that this line declare the state variable is button loading is a function, and set button loading is a update its value. So that variable is likely used to control that loading state of button. And is showing, and the line number 167 that is showing and the set is showing, is that right? So this line declares that state variable is showing and a function. And it set is showing its update its value, that initial value is showing. So it is based on that value of is mobile, likely it's boolean, representing that visibility of that ui controls actually. And the controls variables js elements, jsx element obviously. And that display that various controls settings, that pattern and the generator, and the contents of the controls depends of that is showing is equal to true or it's false, like slightly like that actually. And that next part, there is let cell equal to yeah. So and other once that part is completed, so after that it will be checking that is mobile is equal to it's is that mobile or not, like that actually. So if it is mobile, so it will be go to the say, different place, or if it is not mobile, so it will be taking the screenshot like that actually. And if it is mobile button, so it will be taking that creating the mobile button based on that, or else it will be showing that some default desktop button actually, slightly like that, right? So these all the things are the HTML element. So it will be back changing the background and color. And so these are that form values actually. So we have a slider. We need then the defining the slant size. We need the slider and the button size and the button color. So that main all those things. It's that configuration panel actually. So this will manage the whole configuration grid box actually. So uh, you got what I'm saying, right? So if it is mobile, so based on that size and alignment will be change. uh, that's the thing. And the next part, this is the main thing, cell rows and the connectors actually. So in that already we have the rows and columns we will get from the grid form. So at the same time, once we get that rows and the columns, based on that cell rows to be created, this cell rows will comes from the cell.jsx. and based on that size, color, border radius, all those things will it get applies. Connector also the same. We will get from that number of rows and columns, and based on that, if we get the multiplication, so we will get that number of things we need to connect actually. And inside that we will connector dot push, and inside the connector tag, so the connector dot jsx. So in that part, update size, color, background color, border radius, line influence, all those things will it be applied, get applied actually. So all those things will get randomly applied, and so this is the main content of the that whole design will be applied on this page actually. So this is the thing that whole we implemented in that JSX part. And let's we go to the next part. Yeah, now app.js is completed. So after that, I will go to that to return the CSS file. So here it is. Defaultly, some basic CSS will be written on that. And so in that part, I am already have a CSS file, CSS idea. So I can just type. Yeah. So here is the thing, and so in that part, so there is a root and a basic base colors and a main and a control button and a label, input, output style, input color, and connector wrapper and a mobile button and the buttons, basic media things. So these are the things I applied that CSS, and let's see in that output actually. So and the next part, and the next thing, so I'm going to create that another CSS file called index.css. So in that I already written that. So there is a basic font and all those things I can manage it over there actually. And finally, I'm going to that index.jsx. So in that file, so I just calling that root node, and that I just implement in the whole DOM root element actually. And that index.html level, I just create a some basic anim blom generator. Along with that, I can call that main.jsx actually. Yeah. So here is the thing, and let's start to deploy the process actually. And the main before the deployment, so we need to install that basic dependencies in that replit.com actually. So in that application there is a package.json is there, right? So under the packager files category, so I can open that, and so here is the dependencies of currently, but we need that more dependencies so that I can add it. And so in that dom to image and the file saver, html to canvas, load dash, and vlight, so like that. So I just added over there. And so the next main thing, so I can just run it, and let's see. So the first stage, it's doing that npm install, and let it complete. Yeah, now it's installing, so it will take some time. Now installation is complete. Now it's running npm run dev. It's running. Yeah, now it's completed. So as you can see in that web view, so this is the name generator dot Muhammad Abbas 19 ripple.co. So I can just open in the new tab, and let it wait. Yeah, here is the thing. And so this that animation blob generator. So and I can increase that more column based on that our code. I can increase the rows and the spread. So if I add a much spread, so based on that it will be generate. And color wise, so I can change the color. Yeah, so I can change the color. And link probability, so the probability is 100, all the things were get it linked. And if it is less than, so that linking also will be reducing. And a slight influence, so it will be changing the slides actually. And the grid scale, you can just zoom in, zoom out. And there is a preset option will be there, generating a new pattern, so it will be generating based on that actually. And if you need, you can take a screenshot, and you can save it in your local, and you can use whatever you need actually. So I'm already having that three images I just saved. So along with it I can save it. And so here is the thing. So if you really like that video, please subscribe my channel, and for my efforts, so please subscribe my channel for more videos. and keep sharing to your friends and colleagues, whoever really needs actually. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Bye. We hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and consider to subscribe our channel for more videos like this in the future. Also, don't forget to share this video with your friends and colleagues who might find it useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next video.